all human beings. They make decisions to buy, to trust, to change emotionally. Then they look to recruit information to validate and justify that decision.
Jeff Bloomfield, a genius at this thing called the brain.
The analytical network in the brain, and then there's the emotional empathic network in the brain. You can't activate them both at the same time. You vacillate between them.
So we're going to go through things like trust, how to build trust, and the two types of trust.
Learn what these two types of trust is. It's really not until somebody trusts you instinctively on a personal level are they truly open to how you can help them on a professional level.
So Jeff, what is success to you? How do you define success?
For me, success really turned out to be, how can I use my God-given talents and gifts to make the world better for one more person? And if everybody tend to operate out of that same spirit, I think that then we would have game changers all over the globe.
Jeff, you named the company BrainTrust. Tell me, how do we succeed at trust?
What I learned when I started this company and I really started diving into the research was something, I had this epiphany. There's two different types of trust. There's personal trust and there's professional trust. So personal trust comes from my impression as you and I are interacting, the way that you engage with me, the way that you're communicating with me, the way you're behaving around me. My subconscious brain is formulating, are you acting honestly, authentically, with a little bit of humility? And here's the key, the supercharged director of personal trust. You have just the right amount of vulnerability that I see you as somebody who gets that you're just human, just like me. There's not an air of hubris or arrogance.
Yeah.
So if you come across as honest, authentic, humble with the right amount of vulnerability, biologically, I can't help it. I feel a connection. If I feel a connection, there's a likability there. Therefore, there's a personal trust. And it can be gained in almost instantaneously through body language and nonverbals. And then within the first 5 minutes, it gets reinforced quickly of meeting someone. Now, that's personal trust. And then, of course, you obviously that can ebb and flow as you have a relationship with someone. Then professional trust comes if I perceive you as someone who's knowledgeable, skillful, capable, and you bring insight that's relevant to the things that I care about. I will start to see you as credible. So I will trust you professionally. Now, if you think about that, those two, most people have no idea how to build personal trust. They just do it intuitively. And most people are trained to try to build professional trust. So that's all they do when they communicate with people is try to come across as smart, knowledgeable, capable, credible, because they think that will build trust with them. And what we've learned with these two types of trust is it's really not until somebody trusts you instinctively on a personal level are they truly open to how you can help them on a professional level.
How do we succeed at leadership?
Most people who are in a leadership position are managers. They're not leaders. They're trying to manage people instead of lead them. And the biggest gap that we're seeing is they don't have a shared vision. And what I mean by that is they don't know how to build that kind of trust we just talked about on a personal level. They don't know how to be vulnerable. And so they manage people, and that causes people to repel and resist them. And so by shared vision, what I really mean is leaders need to be able to communicate to their people why they do what they do. Why do they want to be a leader? And then that's part one. The other part of it that's woefully missing. Do you know your people's personal vision? If you have a team of people working for you, or even one person, and you don't know their personal vision, you will never, ever lead them down a path to where they'll use your vehicle or company to pursue that personal vision. But the minute you really understand their personal vision, what they want out of life, and then you understand that, and then you can show them what you can do to help them achieve that through the vehicle that is the company they work at, everything changes.
Yeah.
And I think that's the magic formula for leadership right now that I see is missing.
How do we succeed at communicating now?
The number one determining success factor of any organization or any individual is their ability to communicate effectively. Why are some people great communicators? And why are others not? Is it a personality trait issue? Is it something in genetic? Is it something in their training? Is it something in their background? And it turns out that yes, that can be an impact, but primarily it's a biological thing. What we learned when we studied the brain at a deeper level from a communication standpoint is, and we work a lot with a lot of other PhD researchers on this. Dr. Tony Jacks, one of my favorites, he's out of the UK and he studied at Case Western. He took some of the Kahneman work on the thinking fast and slow, system 1, system 2, and he turned it into this study that showed that there's the analytical network in the brain, and then there's the emotional empathic network in the brain. And you can't activate them both at the same time. You vacillate between them. So the analytical network, this is the part of your brain that you think of consciously. It's where you process facts, figures, logic, rational thinking. It's the CPU. It's the computer part of your brain. Then the emotional empathic networks where you bring all meaning, emotions, feelings. So here's what the driving, this is the money, right? This is the money part of the podcast episode, is all human beings, they make decisions to buy, to trust, to change emotionally. Then they look to recruit information to validate and justify that decision, not the other way around. If my brain naturally operates that way, but as a communicator, all I do is communicate with you analytically, with facts and figures and reasons, whatever the case might be. Your brain is biologically built to resist that information and the person communicating. You have to be able to activate that emotional empathic network in people. And the way that you do that is through storytelling. The way that you do that is through evoking emotions in people about things they care about.
If we use this for marketing and sales, what are some of the keys to success in that area?
Well, and you see it a lot. You see it in a lot of brands on the consumer side that are very good at storytelling and emotion. Everybody likes to use Apple. So you rarely see Apple come out with a commercial that tells you all the great features of the latest iPhone in the iOS 75 or whatever we're on. Yeah. What do? They grab you by the emotional network of your brain. They project you into a setting like they did with the new Apple Watch that had the automatic 911 on it, where they story told you with the guy that was drowning, the farmer who fell in the well, and they're telling their story and they're listening and they're playing their actual calls to 911 from their watch. And then at the end, they present, this was done on the Apple Watch. If you had it, you'd be saved as well. See what they did there? They just tapped into your emotional network, sucked you in, allowed you to be part of that story. You made that part of your story your own. Then they gave you a reason to choose them. That's the difference.
So sales, how do we get sales using this?
We don't like sales training. We don't think it works. We don't like even a lot of sales methodologies. And so what we built was a framework around how the brain processes information. So the first phase is, can you create a true connection with another human being? Then the next step that's critical is, tell me a story about me. Tell me all you know about my business model, how my business model makes money, my role inside that business model, and what do you think my goals and challenges might be right now? Then ask me questions about what you got right. Yeah. And all of a sudden, the customer, the prospect, everything changes. Yeah. Because you're on their agenda.
And that's the Big Success podcast for today. Hopefully you took a lot of notes, learned a whole bunch, and if you need to, go re-listen to it. We dropped a lot of information right there today. Big Success is what it's all about. And by the way, if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button so you're here with us every single week on the Big Success podcast. I'm Brad Sugars. That's BS. Big Success is what we're shooting for. Check the show notes for all the links. Make sure you follow through. Keep learning. Keep coming back. Oh, and by the way, share this with any of your friends who you know are up for success. I'll see you next week on the Big Success podcast.
You've been listening to the Big Success podcast with the #1 business coach in the world, Brad Sugars. To learn more about how to achieve business and personal success, as well as how to level up or listen to past episodes, visit www.bradsugars.com.